This program, while curated to help you improve your health, contains general advice and should not replace the individual advice of your medical practitioner.
So you feel like you're accomplishing something because you're accomplishing getting really good at tolerating feeling bad. And it just feels to me like what a lot of us kind of collectively want right now is to feel better in the process while we're getting better. We all want to be vulnerable, but we want to also control it too. We want to control the narrative and tell the story instead of allowing ourselves to be moved. Softness is really the thing that makes everything possible. You know, a tree is not freaking out when the breeze comes by. The tree is strong because it has the ability to be moved by the wind.
In life, it's normal to have ups and downs. But what do we do when we get stuck? I've always been fascinated by the healing journey. Why do some people get better while others fail to make the shift? Welcome to the Season 2 Expert Series, where you'll meet 24 of the world's leaders in health discussing their passions and what it takes to make a shift.
We tend to be our harshest critics.
We are more than the muscle and bones in our body.
Whoa, that's so opposite of what I was taught growing up.
I would like a call to arms for women to know that their intuition isn't lying to them.
I'm Catherine Maslin, and this is The Shift. Hi, I'm Catherine Maslin, naturopath, author, and host of The Shift. In the Expert Series, we share the insight, stories, and expertise of each of our amazing experts. We're talking doctors, authors, naturopaths, researchers, and thought leaders. You may have heard them on Season 2 of The Shift, where we took snippets of these interviews to put them together in the series for you. If you haven't listened to Season 2 yet, I'd highly recommend checking out Episode 1, which will give you an overview of what constitutes women's hormonal health and a sneak peek into the series. We'll provide a link in the show notes. Tara Stiles is a wellness expert, best-selling author, and the founder of Strala Yoga. The Strala approach combines yoga, Tai Chi, and traditional Chinese and Japanese medicine to help people release stress, heal, let go of negative habits, and move more easily through everyday challenges. But Tara isn't your regular yoga guru. She has made some major waves, including working with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, an initiative with the American Heart Association and the Clinton Foundation that combats childhood obesity, to bring yoga classes to more than 30,000 schools around the United States. She is the author of 7 books, including several New York Times bestsellers. Tara has been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, Elle, Harper, Bazaar, InStyle, Esquire, and more. Tara is endorsed by Deepak Chopra as the most useful yoga instructor he has ever had. And Vanity Fair has said that she has to be the coolest yoga instructor ever. And I tend to agree. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do too. Let's jump in. Tara Stiles, thank you so much for joining me on The Shift. It's my absolute pleasure to have you with me today. And before we get started, for those people that don't know you, I would love for you to share with me, who is Tara Stiles and what is the story of what brought you to the point that you're at today?
You know, I think I have a familiar story to a lot of folks, especially, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about people who, you know, find our way helping ourselves and helping others in that process. I grew up doing contemporary dance and always loved to be outside and move, and, you know, also had straight edge hippie parents that built a passive solar home without much money and, you know, sort of taught me to live really simply, and a lot of things that I took for granted, to be honest, growing up until my kind of teenage years and figuring out what to do with my life. And I thought I would dance professionally for as long as that would be possible for me, and then figure out how to continue a job in the arts somehow. So finding my way into the world of helping other people at all has been such a gift to actually use all the parts of myself that I felt so strongly were able to be used as a young child, but I didn't quite know how to direct myself or where to point myself to learn to fulfill all those parts of myself.
So I guess you're right. We could totally speak all day about all the intricacies of how all of these things happen. But what was sort of the progression from doing contemporary dance and being in that world to getting into the world of yoga?
In my dance conservatory, I went to a sort of a pre-professional program. We had ballet and contemporary modern dance. And my ballet teacher, his name is Rory Foster. He was dancing with American Ballet Theater in New York City in the 70s when, I guess, and I wasn't there, but, a big yoga movement was happening then. So he was studying yoga in New York alongside his dance and also getting involved in the East Asian healing arts and all of this kind of stuff. And he brought a yoga teacher, very simple Hatha yoga class to our program, which this was the late 90s. So of course I know yoga is much older than the 80s and 90s, but it was still pretty new as far as being in a curriculum for a program like that. And that was the first time I ever had a yoga class. And I couldn't find it anywhere else. My first experience was, oh my goodness, this is incredible and amazing. This is all the feelings I had as a kid. And I didn't know that there was other people doing these feelings and also a physical practice and things you could learn. And my second thought was, why doesn't everybody do this? Why doesn't my friends do this? What's happening? Where's the world of this? So I just started looking around as best as I could. My ballet teacher gave me the book Autobiography of a Yogi. I read the whole thing and went to the ashram on the back in San Diego on, Christmas break and just started looking for more people doing these practices and still had no plan in becoming a leader in this world. I didn't even honestly know that was something you could do as a job, as a career. I saw more people in this field as a volunteer or, working in service. So that wasn't really on my mind at all. But as things do, one thing kind of leads to another. And, you couldn't get me to stop talking about yoga and feeling better through yoga. And I just got pulled in over the years and it just slowly kind of took over my entire life.
And so you went on then to do your yoga teacher training, became an instructor, was teaching classes, and now you have this amazing company where you've got everything from yoga wear to training, and there's a really unique philosophy in this, isn't it? So tell me a little bit more about your style of yoga, which you call the Strala approach to yoga. How is it different from other types, and what is it all about?
Sure. So, the thing that I was seeing once I started finding all of the yoga places back then in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was wonderful teachers kind of one-off leading yoga in a very nice, harmonious way. And then there was all of these different schools that taught very differently from each other. And a lot of them, I guess as best as I could describe it as dogmatic or, maybe even rigid and, sort of seeing where the problems come out 10 years and 20 years later with a lot of these institutions, being very strict and power controlling and in all of these kind of strange ways or, very insular ways. So, I'm kind of going once and then bouncing out and not really going back and then trying to consider, well, how can I get my friends to do yoga? And it has to feel like them. My friends aren't going to be convinced to go to a place that makes them feel insecure or less than or confuses them in any way. So I thought, well, yoga is so wonderful and all of these different institutions express it in a different way that appeals to people that can think and feel like that. But here's all of these other people that, have no interest in that, but there's still this beautiful practice of yoga that, that should be able to fit everybody if it feels like everybody. So I just started leading yoga classes in a way in Central Park and people's homes and gyms, wherever I had an opportunity, and sharing that yoga can feel like you, describing the movements in easygoing language, just speaking to people like people, which, back then in the yoga world was kind of unheard of. You had to almost talk in a funny voice or, not speak to the students before or after class and create a distance in a way. And it's really started with an idea and an atmosphere of just, being easy with people and, all my background with movement and dance and ease and being efficient in the movement really started to refine really in a laboratory kind of way, a more specific focus on moving with ease, on doing what you can do without pushing your body and forcing your body in a unkind way.
This is massive, and I love this too, because a lot of the time with yoga, or I guess what the West perceives yoga, a lot of the time it's all about the pose, isn't it? It's like, how do I get into this perfect pose and stretch more and bend more? What do you say to that type of culture or point of view when it comes to the way that people practice yoga?
20 years ago when I first started, I felt like I was speaking into the void, and I would find, someone like you, and they would agree with me, and then we'd be kind of alone with our ideas. And then you'd go into a class, and if you weren't rigid, you weren't going to reach the spiritual enlightenment. And, now, thankfully, science is here, and the stress response is here. And it literally shows that if you're forcing your body can't receive the benefits of the practice that you're doing. So, I just love using the science in there to back up my guess, I guess, or what I, in my idea knew what's true, because you can see people and it's not working for them. If you're forcing and pushing and struggling, you're actually chemically practicing getting better at forcing and pushing and struggling. So you feel like you're accomplishing something because you're accomplishing getting really good at tolerating feeling bad. And you're accomplishing, being able to tolerate stress better and better, instead of accomplishing being able to do more. And it's really everywhere. This idea of no pain, no gain, force, push, and struggle. It's sort of the Western way, and if you're not doing that, you're lazy, you're not achieving, or you've just burned out, and then give yourself a year to kind of get back on. But, really all of the East Asian wisdom and honestly, dance, how I grew up, you can't be rigid. Otherwise the movement doesn't work. So it makes sense from a meditative practice that you need to understand how to move your body really well and make moving well the goal, not being as contorted or bendy or rigid as possible as the goal. It's just the wrong goal. And, we as humans get so stuck in believing our bad goal is the goal, and we just don't want to see the reality that it's the wrong path. We just got to turn around and go the right way, So it's just more people are now turning around and going a better way, I think.
So what I find really interesting is that, yoga, which is about sort of the opposite of that, opposite to pushing and not tuning in, etc., that a large part of it has actually become this, and it's just taken our culture and our stuff and then put it through that yoga framework and really westernized it, which is pretty crazy, because it's not just yoga, right? This is a really good analogy for looking at how we approach different things, and I think different types of exercise, but other stuff in life too, hey?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's so cool that, you can use your yoga practice time or really any of your well-being practices to change how you are. And, we're so, I think we're all so stuck in this idea of ourselves. However we are, if we're stressed and forcing and pushing in our lives, we're just going to automatically do yoga that way. Even if the teacher is saying, be at ease or whatever, we have to really make a conscious choice to have a little bit of a sense of humor about ourselves and say, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. I'm being so rigid again. Is that really getting me where I want to go? Or can I actually soften a little bit, move a little bit better, and see if moving well will lead me to a better place? And, you can't talk somebody into that. Often people need to go through their own, whether it's burnout or struggle, or just see that, hey, that person over there is accomplishing a lot and they're making everything look easy. Are they just more talented than everybody else, or are they doing a different approach? And, I love looking at outside of yoga for examples of that. You have any, really beautiful, accomplished athlete is practicing the thing that they're doing over and over and over, not to tolerate stress, but to find the most, energy efficient way to do their thing so they can have their mind power to be aware, so they can be as graceful as possible. You can look for examples of this in people you admire, and whether it's business or really any area of artistic or, human endeavor, is using conservation of energy, is using grace and ease. And we're not going to do it naturally if we're not already in the habit of trying to do it, because it feels very unnatural, because, our whole life we're told to force, push, and struggle, do well in school, and then you'll get a good job, and then you can retire, and then you can go on vacation, when you're 90, or something like that. So it's just, we're all in the same boat. And I think it's just about recognizing when we're being, rigid and working against ourselves, and consciously making those changes every time.
So you talk about this concept that people should do yoga with a Tai Chi mindset, and we've kind of covered a little bit about that stuff, but can you tell me, what does that mean?
Sure. Well, I'm not a master, an expert, anything at all. My husband grew up doing all this stuff, so I hear about it all the time. And whenever he talks about Tai Chi, it's sort of my naive feelings about yoga come up again. It's this moving in an energy efficient way, being self-aware, improving as you move instead of having the pose be the goal. This whole balance of harmony with yourself and with the people around you and yourself and nature. It's one of those ancient wisdoms that kind of applies to everything. And I think with yoga, it's a perfect thing to think about because we've somehow got to a point with yoga where, it's all about not just the pose, but we confuse alignment with doing good. And we confuse putting ourselves in a kind of fussy alignment and always fixing ourselves as alignment instead of how Tai Chi looks at alignment being an all the time situation. So you're constantly moving yourself in better alignment, moving more in harmony with yourself by how you move the whole time. And with yoga, we get really stuck in, okay, forget about how I'm going to get there. It's just a transition. Let me get to the next pose and then adjust my shirt, adjust my leg, adjust my shoulders, and then maybe something good will happen. Where, that's what we've kind of accepted as normal in yoga and also feels like life too. Whenever I get this thing, then I'm going to be happy. But with Tai Chi, it's sort of adjust yourself all the time. There's no mistake in moving in harmony because you're always flowing. And I think that's just so holistic. And it just feels to me like what a lot of us kind of collectively want right now is to feel better in the process while we're getting better.
I love that. One of the sayings that we have at Shift is small shifts lead to profound changes, and it's all about continuing to shift in that small way. It doesn't always have to be something that's huge or perfect or even for something to be fixed to actually arrive where you need to be. What I want to know about is your new book that's coming out, and it actually will be out by the time we release this podcast. It's called Clean Mind, Clean Body. I want to know, why did you decide to write it and what are people going to get out of reading it?
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, thanks so much. And I love your mission of these small shifts because that's such a variation of what I'm trying to accomplish here too. And for me personally, it's about slowing down. And the more I talk about just with friends and people through our community about slowing down, there just seems to be this sigh of relief or, almost a permission slip in a way where, oh, it's okay to slow down. I've been wearing my stress as a sign of success. And, just looking at the last several years of wellness becoming this massive industry and just looking around in every city that we all get to go and seeing how people are bopping from, one yoga class to Pilates and drinking a green juice and throwing it out and going over here and donating $5 and then going home and feeling bad about yourself at the end of the day. And kind of, this idea of outsourcing our wellness just seemed to be everywhere. And I started to get really, thinking about that and trying to think about, well, how do I participate in that? Because that's what I'm noticing. So that's got to be some bit of what I'm doing too. I've got to be part of that problem. And just noticing how slowing down and getting into this Tai Chi mindset that I'm, been learning about for so long, and then really taking a step back and seeing, okay, we all know about Ayurveda and Tai Chi and meditation and yoga bits and bits, but we've tried to, fit it into little pills and bite-sized sandwiches and have, 5 moves for this and little hacks and all these kinds of things. And when really what these wisdoms are saying are the answers are inside. If you slow down, learn these things, you have your whole life to learn them, but you are really the main ingredient to your wellness, and what a great time we have, so many variations of products and services that can help you, but we don't need to be so neurotic about those things too. So it's kind of long-winded, but it's really about, giving people permission to slow down, do these things, realize that they're a part of their own wellness process and enjoy.
Have you listened to season 1 of The Shift? If you're enjoying this conversation, you'll love season 1, where we deep dive into the field of gut health with 24 of the world leaders in this area. Once you're done, head back to your podcast app and find episode 1. It's a great place to start. What are some practical steps that they can take when they're in this kind of thing where they're spinning, right? So they're not healthy in their mind, their body, their spirit, whatever it is. They're looking for all the stuff. They're drinking the green juice. They're doing the things. What are like the first steps you think they should take to try and just sort of get out of that, slow down and come back into their own body?
The coolest thing about these practices is it doesn't matter if you're on a yoga mat, it doesn't matter if you're in your Tai Chi outfit or whatever. You can be standing in line at the grocery store and soften your body a little bit. And I think that even word right there feels negative for so many people. They think soften and they think, oh, well, I'll be jiggly or wibbly or wobbly, or I'm not going to be as attractive as, I think I look when I'm holding myself together in this way. And I've seen in the last many years just saying that word and getting a horrified response, really. So, softness is really the thing that makes everything possible. A tree is not freaking out when the breeze comes by. The tree is strong because it has the ability to be moved by the wind. It's not saying, wind, come back tomorrow, I'll be ready for you. Or it's not resisting the breeze. It's being bendable by the breeze. And this is really how our bodies and minds and spirits, all of the stuff that makes us up work, is being soft and being movable. And it's something, it doesn't have to be a whole intellectual or feel bad about yourself going down that road. It can literally be bending your joints a little bit, having a bit of an emotional softening, whatever that is for you, and then wiggling your body a little bit from your center, just rolling around a little bit, giving yourself a bit of a reset. And then you don't even have to breathe deep from that soft, movable place. Your breath starts to naturally be bigger and flow through you and actually move your body. We all in yoga inhale and then move up, and then we exhale and then push our way down. We don't have to do any of that. If we're soft, when we breathe in, we naturally move upward and outward like a big globe. And when we breathe out, we naturally come inward and relax. And we can really ride our breath just like riding a wave or enjoying a walk at the beach, or all of the reasons why we actually feel better when we're in nature. But when we remember that we're part of that and we do a simple practice to come back to that, then, I think that can be a real game changer.
So Tara, I want to get into some deeper stuff here, right? And we were talking about this concept of, even something as simple as softening being negative, right? These negative connotations that if we're not strong and we're not hard and we're not pushing all the time, that there's like an element almost, I guess, of weakness, or that we don't feel safe to be in this space. I know from hearing some of your stories too that you're really real around you actually being part of this experience. I think earlier mentioning something like, we're all in this. We all experience these beliefs and emotions and behaviors that we need to check ourselves on. But what do you think has gone on with this mindset that we can't be soft, and especially for women, I guess, and men, but what is this negativity around us being able to actually be vulnerable, be soft, and actually let go?
Oh gosh, that's the big question. I think we all want to be vulnerable, but we want to also control it too. We want to control the narrative and tell the story instead of allowing ourselves to be moved. And the nature of who we are is, if you're stiff and rigid, you break. We all know that. That's when we fall down and break ourselves, and our minds break down a little bit when we're trying to control another person or ourselves. And when we're soft and movable, we have a more harmonious experience. We're able to relax and have that feeling where we're having a good conversation with a friend. We do feel safe. So vulnerability is able to pour out of us. We can't control the endpoint. And, the beauty is you can find out all this stuff, like a big remembering when you go outside and walk around. There's no endpoints in nature. You're moving into the direction that pulls your attention and, heading over to the tree that's most beautiful to you, but you're not thinking, oh, that tree next to it is less attractive than that other tree. It just seems ridiculous when we bring ourselves back to nature in that way, and then also remember our own nature. But yeah, absolutely. Everything around us is telling us a story of, sure, go ahead and be vulnerable if you can spin that into a success story, or be vulnerable if you can, get some points somehow for it. But for real, you better be able to control it and see that endpoint. Otherwise, it's not going to be safe. Just from, my own experience and people I talk to, it's the fear of what's going to happen. I'm going to lose praise from other people. I'm going to lose my social status. I'm going to lose my money. I'm going to lose, I'm going to be out of control of my weight. All of these issues around controlling food and controlling people. I think everything under the book, a lot of this comes down to fear around vulnerability and real vulnerability, not just this, okay, I can be vulnerable on when I'm giving my online Instagram talk, or I can take a picture that looks vulnerable and then be, so addicted to the feedback of that, that situation in a way. So we're in a pretty tough place right now with, all of these strange feedback loops that we're either addicted to or, told that we're supposed to be addicted to them. Otherwise, we're not doing it right. But yeah, I would, just from folks I speak with, I think every fear in the book comes down to, vulnerability.
You've got a bit of a story around eating disorder as well, don't you, Tara?
I never thought it would happen to me. I think that's a lot of people's story. I had a, very happy childhood, very healthy in all the ways, full of energy, full of life. And my story with an eating disorder came out of a sexual assault. And I was living in my dance conservatory, and it was a person in the same building that assaulted me. And, I tried to tell my story and, to my roommate, things like that. And, I was just kind of in a haze, really not really remembering what was going on, being in a kind of state of shock and just deciding not to do anything about it. So, I was seeing this person every day and, in and out of elevators with this person. And, I couldn't control anything about my life. So I started to control my food. And, a lot of that was dodging, meal times in the cafeteria. And then it developed into something much more dangerous to myself, to a point where my ballet instructor, who I deeply admire and is still a really big mentor in my life, walked down the hallway one day and I knew this was the confrontation, and he tapped me on the shoulder. And, for anybody with an eating disorder, and I know this as somebody who has gone through it and also helps other people just in a friendly, non-clinical way, but that point of contact, a point of touch, of healing touch from somebody who cares about you is the most vulnerable thing in the world. And from that point of touch, I knew that somebody cared about me, and I knew that I was embarrassed because I thought that he thought that I was, controlling my eating to be a better dancer, which wasn't the reason at all. And he said, Tara, you really have to take care of yourself. I'm really concerned about you. And from that moment, I just decided that, this isn't good for me. This control is terrible. And I just, I got help and I changed my situation and got back on track.
And what was it for you that helped you to kind of get out of that mindset and, heal from that, I guess?
I think just, knowing that somebody I really respected and admired cared about me. I got to a point where I was restricting so much and isolating so much and hiding it all with hard work and stress and, which ended up being push and force and struggle, and also really not identifying with that mindset at all, because that's not, in my essence, really a part of, my upbringing or who I am. But I think it really was that, having someone reach out to me was massive. So, I see these opportunities I have just with a stranger that comes to a class or workshop I'm leading, and a moment where I can, go up and I don't even have to say anything. I can put my hand on somebody's shoulder before class, or, kind of hang around if somebody wants to talk to me. And I just feel like being that person can be such a massive moment of taking real responsibility that something is wrong and you need to get some help.
So one of the things I read on your website was a testimonial from Deepak Chopra, and it says, I've been doing yoga for 30 years. I've had teachers of all kinds. Taking lessons from Tara has been more useful to me than taking yoga from anyone else. So first of all, I want to ask you, how did you come to meet Deepak Chopra, and how did it feel for you to get that feedback from him?
Oh my gosh. Well, Deepak now has been in my life for a long time and has been, I feel like he's an adopted uncle of mine. So I'm just so grateful to know him the way I know him and so well, and his family and everything. I definitely didn't expect that. But, many years ago, I was writing my first book and the publisher said, okay, who's going to write the cover blurb? And I didn't know anything about the publishing industry or how to find people to write cover blurbs, but I knew they were written by famous people in the same kind of industry. So I just said jokingly, well, I kind of really think Deepak Chopra would like what I'm trying to do because he's, done it already. And he's done it in a way, he's made all of this stuff so accessible. And I'm just trying to continue that on for my generation in this way through yoga at that time. And they said, okay, call him. And I'm like, I don't know who he is. He doesn't know me. But the next day I got an email to my, simple website and an invite to come and lead a small yoga class for a tiny group of people at an event. And they said in the email that Deepak Chopra would be giving a talk. And I said, well, this is pretty interesting coincidence. So I go to the event and do the thing. And it was really tiny. It was just him and I and a few other people there. And he came right up to me and he said, I know who you are. I like what you do. Would you like to do a yoga app with me? And I said, yoga app, what's that? And this is like 2009, but sure, of course, whatever you say, So he gave me a phone number of somebody he was working with and they called me the next day. So we did the app, and at the app, he said, would you come over to my home and teach my wife and I yoga when I'm in New York? And I said, well, you don't need a yoga teacher. You know everything about yoga. And he said, yeah, but you are going to do yoga with me and show me yoga. And you're not going to try to be fancy with me or try to tell me, all the fancy things about yoga history, and a lot of other people do. And it's really exhausting. So I said, no worries with me. I'll treat you like a family member, like a regular person, and, happy to help you feel better because you've got to have a really busy schedule and, you want to have access to your creativity and feel good in your body. So, we kind of hit it off from there and, just coming into his home as someone, with some knowledge to help him feel better in his body and in his mind. And, he's such a generous person. He's every single time after a yoga class with me in the morning at 6 a.m., he'd have his wife, Rita, take a picture of us and then tweet it out. And he would say, make sure you retweet this because people need to know about you. And, he really took me under and helped me quite a bit. And he still does to this day.
How amazing. Talked about this concept of sequencing and arranging your day in a way that there's flow. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. Well, we have a joke in our trainings, because we teach, how to sequence a yoga class. And from my perspective, the yoga class starts way before, you sit at the front of the room and begin. And there's a huge missed opportunity if you don't kind of work with that. So, obviously when you first enter the room, and I love being the first one there so I don't miss anything and I can rearrange stuff if I want to rearrange stuff to be more comfortable or change the direction or put on some music or open the windows or just make the space more comfortable for me. So, thinking about sort of that first moment as that opportunity to begin. And also when it's over, it's not over at the last moment of the breath, and seeing that as a chance to interact in a way that you want to interact with people, to choose who you're going to talk to choose where you place your body in the room. For me, body position is a huge part of sequencing in the day, especially having a young daughter. Our daughter is almost 4 now. And, kids don't lie when it comes to if you're in a funky body position or if you're in a funky mood. So I've learned to really use that as an opportunity to bend my knees a little bit, roll around, see what happens if I stand facing her. She might feel a little confronted with something, or to the side, a little more ready to play kind of a thing. So, it's been quite a quest and fun for us as a family to arrange our day, thinking about sequencing and thinking about the order of things and how everything makes us feel, and thinking about the end of the day as a little mental review and, how can we do something tomorrow that'll be a little bit more interesting, and where can we improve, and, how can I prepare the lunch at the best time, and what can we do after lunch, and how can we change up the workflow to be more harmonious and more fun. So for me, it's so interesting, and I can see if I wasn't interested in it, the day could be exhausting and frustrating. And, when things aren't going right, I'm not prepared, or, I'm late for something or early for something. But when I think of a whole day as, part of a sequence, then I can treat it like a composition. I can arrange something to be beautiful and harmonious and still have room to improvise. So I know it's a kind of an out there topic a bit, but it's pretty fun when you think about it just in terms of, something more likely to what you do, like a yoga class, or, even a meeting, the sequence of a meeting, or, the sequence of when you're sitting down to write a book, the things that you do when you do them, and how it makes you feel.
Want to look deeper into your own health? Our virtual naturopathic team help people all over the world to shift their health and their lives. We offer a 90-minute online discovery and diagnostic session where you can find out where you're at, why things are happening, and what you need to do about it. Everyone is an individual, and sometimes it can help to have someone break down your journey and see where you need to head next. To find out more, go to theshiftclinic.com and click on Clinic. So this show is called The Shift. So what I'd like to know is, what has been the biggest shift that you've made in your life, and how has that helped you grow as a person?
Gosh, I think several years ago, even so hypocritical, talking about ease and moving with ease and all of this stuff. I mean, I think the reason I like to share it is because I needed to. But I was reaching a point where I was getting really, really busy and having a studio in New York and flying across the world to do different commitments and different events and trainings and all kinds of really exciting, amazing things that I always wanted, but really overstretched quite a bit and doing my best to be at ease. But it was, ridiculous to anybody that really knew me at all, the kinds of schedule I was keeping up for myself. So, really deciding to slow down, deciding to cut back a whole lot, taking a couple years off of writing books, trying to make a baby, these kinds of things, they seem so typical. I think a lot of people kind of go through a moment like that, but, I don't think it was, a dramatic, burnout situation. But I noticed, if I want to continue my life in any meaningful way, I gotta slow down. I'm literally circling the globe and being unsustainable in every way possible.
So last question, if you could give just one piece of advice for someone that wants to make a shift in their life, what would it be?
Slow down, I think is, and it's so hard to hear because again, that fear of, well, if I slow down, I'm going to miss out, or you're just telling me to not be successful, or you're telling me to, to change everything. And it's really not. It's a shift in how you're doing all of the things, and an opportunity to have a conversation with yourself, to slow down, give yourself a moment to breathe and notice what's really happening with you, what's really going on with you. And then, from there, you're kind of in a fast track, really. You're going to be able to move a lot faster in a more graceful way. So I think, but slowing down and really believing that is so powerful.
Tara Stiles, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so wonderful chatting with you, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much.
There was so much good stuff in that episode. Let's review some of the key points and what action you can take as a result of this. I think the biggest take home from this episode is flipping the inaccurate belief that yoga is about working towards the perfect pose, or even being about the poses themselves. A lot of commercialised yoga has been about poses and strength and pushing yourself, when really it should be about working with your own body and finding your own space and time to move and tune into what works for you. When we push and strive all the time, we become rigid and then lack the ability to go with the flow. This is important because life will always throw us curveballs, and we need to be soft enough to bend with the changes so that we don't break. I like Tara's idea of sequencing your day so that it flows. Do you think about what you schedule and when, and how this will impact you and your day? Could you set up your environment so that you work better in it? Is there anything that obviously impacts the flow of the day that perhaps you could change? Learning is great, but action is better. Here are a few things that you could do as a result of this conversation in order to shift your health and your life. Tara says, focus on moving with ease and doing what you can do without pushing your body and forcing your body in an unkind way. I really like this approach. How can we be more kind to our bodies when we practice movement and are trying to get out of our comfort zones? Are we being too self-critical or pushing things too hard when we're exercising? Practice becoming more soft. We live in a world that is so rigid and pushy that sometimes we contract. This softness allows us to move with the wind rather than be pushed over by it. You can practice this with your breathing, feeling the breath slowly fill up and then roll out of your body like a wave, softening your body on the way out. I think that yoga is one of the most beneficial forms of movement out there and one you should seriously consider as part of your wellness routine. I'd recommend finding a space, either online or in person, where the focus is not to push and do perfect poses, but rather to tune into your body, use your breath, and provide a space where you can feel free to be vulnerable and let go. Unfortunately, many yoga studios and programs will not meet this criteria, so you may want to check out Tara's website for more. Thank you so much, Tara, for showing up and sharing your wisdom on The Shift. You inspire so many people, and the world is a better place with you in it. If you like this episode, please let us know by sharing on social media and tagging Tara and myself, Catherine Maslin, or The Shift Clinic, so that we can hear what you have to say. You can find out more about Tara Stiles on her website, tarastiles.com, and find info on her yoga programs at stralayoga.com. You can also follow her on Instagram and Facebook. In the next episode of the Shift Expert series, we have Lara Bryden. Lara is a naturopathic doctor and one of the leading voices when it comes to women's health, hormones, and more. This episode is jam-packed with a heap of eye-opening information, so make sure you check it out.
Coming up on The Shift.
The pill is chemical castration. There's really no other way to look at it. Contraceptive drugs rob women of their own hormones. Your period can be a handy gauge because ovulation will be the first thing to switch off with undereating. We have this crazy narrative in our society that periods are a liability somehow, that they're difficult, and that just goes with the territory. And of course, that's not true at all. The menstrual cycle can be a strength.
This series is a production of The Shift Clinic. Hosted by Catherine Maslin. Music and sound design by Shade Furlong. Thank you to all of our experts. For more details on them, go to theshiftclinic.com.
We can be. We must be.
The first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation most determined to fight injustice
and inequality.
The generation that saves the planet
from climate change.
And this is how we will get it done.
The global goals.
A 15-year plan for everyone, everywhere.
With no one left behind.
The global goals are a framework that collectively help us
support the health of our people
and the planet.
At Shift, we are ambassadors for the global goals.
This project supports global goal number 6.
Clean water and sanitation.
Every time you listen
to an episode of The Shift,
we provide a day's access to clean water for a human in need
in Malawi, Africa.
Water is the foundation to health, and we believe
every human should have access
to clean, healthy water.
So please share this podcast wide
and keep tuning in
so we can impact those who need it the most.